My family used me as their personal ATM for 3 years. I spent $102,000 on my spoiled brother and manipulative parents. But when I discovered the truth at 3 a.m., I moved out in secret and left them without their cash machine. I'm 27 years old. I work in digital marketing, and I need to tell this story because I basically spent 3 years funding my entire family's life before realizing I was being totally used. And when I say totally used, I mean I spent like $100,000 on my family without even processing what was happening until it was too late. Or I mean, not too late because I eventually got out. But you know what I mean. It all started like 4 years ago when I moved back in with my parents. I had just ended a serious relationship. I was saving up to buy my own place, and my parents told me I could stay with them while I saved money, which sounded like a solid plan at the time. My mom is a high school teacher. My dad worked in sales, but his hours had been reduced, and we agreed that I would pay $800 a month in rent, which seemed fair to me because back then, a decent apartment in the city cost like $1,500. So technically I was saving money, right? My younger brother Dylan was like 19 at the time and had just started college, and my sister Heather, who's 25, was doing her PhD in another city. She was always the smartest of the three of us, honestly. The first few months were normal. Like I paid my rent on time, helped with groceries once in a while. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then, like 4 months into living there, my parents sat me down at the kitchen table one night after dinner. And my mom had that face, that "we need to talk about something important" face. And they basically told me they were having trouble paying for Dylan's college. My dad explained that with his reduced hours and tuition costs going up every semester, they just couldn't cover it all. And Dylan didn't qualify for many scholarships because technically our family income was just above the cutoff, you know what I mean? My mom said something like, "We just need help with 1 semester, maybe 2, until Dylan can get a part-time job or something." And here's the thing. I was making good money at my job at that point. I had just gotten a raise, and I thought, well, he's my younger brother. Obviously I'm going to help, right? So I agreed to pay for that semester, which was like $8,000, thinking it would be a one-time thing. But then the next semester came, and the next one, and suddenly I was paying not just tuition, but also books, which by the way are ridiculously expensive. Like $300 for a book you use for half a semester? It's a total ripoff. And then other things started. Small at first, like my mom saying, "Hey Alexander, can you buy groceries this week?" Or my dad casually mentioning they needed to change the car tires but didn't have the money at the moment. What happened next was, I basically became the family bank, without even realizing it. Dylan started his second year of college and suddenly needed a new laptop because his had broken, so I paid $1,200 for that. Then, he needed a car to get to college because public transportation was inconvenient, according to him, and I ended up buying him a used 2015 Honda Civic for $19,000, which is a ridiculous amount of money, but my parents insisted it was necessary, that Dylan couldn't miss classes because of transportation issues. And the thing is, every time I paid for something, my parents thanked me effusively. Like my mom would hug me and say things like, "I don't know what we'd do without you. You're an amazing son." And that made me feel good, you know? Like I was doing the right thing, being a good older brother. But Dylan, oh God, Dylan became a real problem. At first he did thank me, but after like a year and a half, he started acting like everything I paid for was something he automatically deserved. He'd text me like, "Hey, I need $500 for books. Send it today," without a please or anything. One time I told him to wait until Friday because I had just paid a bunch of bills and he literally got mad at me, saying I didn't understand the pressure of being in college. Can you believe it? I had paid for his entire education for 2 years at that point, and he was giving me attitude because I couldn't transfer money immediately. My mom always defended his behavior, saying he was stressed about exams and I should be more understanding. Fast forward to like the 3rd year of this arrangement, I was 27 at that point and still living with my parents, which was already starting to feel weird because all my friends had their own places. Some were already married, and I was still in my childhood bedroom basically supporting my family. One night, it was like 2 in the morning and I couldn't sleep. So I opened my laptop and started going through my bank statements from the past 3 years. I have all my receipts digitized because I'm kind of obsessive about that, and I started adding up everything, absolutely everything I had paid related to my family. Dylan's tuition, books, the car insurance, maintenance, repairs. When he crashed the damn car into a pole in the university parking lot, the gas I paid for, family outings I financed, Christmas gifts I bought for everyone because this year is tough. House repairs that somehow always ended up being my responsibility. Like when the water heater broke, and I ended up paying $2,500 for a new one. When I finished adding everything up at 3:30 in the morning, the total was like $102,000. $102,000 in 3 years. Not counting the rent I kept paying religiously every month. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach, like I literally felt physically sick. That amount of money would have been enough for a down payment on a house, or to start a business, or to travel around the world for a year, and I had spent it basically being my two-year-old brother's substitute father and subsidizing my parents' lifestyle. I couldn't sleep that night, obviously, and the next day at work, I was like a zombie. My friend Chris noticed something was wrong, and I ended up telling him everything during lunch, and he was like completely horrified. He told me, "Dude, that's financial abuse. Your parents are using you." And I laughed, because it sounded dramatic, but he insisted, "No, seriously, look it up. That's literally the definition of financial abuse." That night, instead of going straight home, I stayed at a coffee shop and wrote my whole story on Reddit, on one of those family relationship forums, because I needed to know if I was crazy or if Chris was right. The responses started coming in, and basically everyone said the same thing, that my parents were manipulating me, that Dylan was a spoiled, entitled brat, that I needed to get out of there immediately. One person commented, "Your sister did her PhD and nobody paid for everything. Why can't Dylan work part-time like literally millions of college students do?" And that hit me hard because they were right. Heather had worked throughout her entire undergrad and grad school, lived super frugally, and nobody in the family had supported her like that because she never asked for it. She just figured it out on her own. I texted her that night, like at 11, just saying, "Hey, can I call you?" And when we talked, I told her everything. The numbers, Dylan's behavior, how I was feeling. Heather was quiet for a moment and then said, "Alexander, they've been using you from the beginning. I saw it from when you started paying for his first semester, but I thought you had decided it consciously. I didn't know it had gone this far." She told me that Mom and Dad knew exactly what they were doing, that the guilt they made me feel every time I considered saying no was calculated manipulation, and that Dylan had become a monster because he never had to work for anything. It was the first time in 3 years that someone validated what I was feeling, instead of telling me I was being selfish, or that's just how family is. The following week, something happened that was like the final breaking point. Dylan texted me saying he needed winter tires for his car, that they cost like $700, and to buy them for him. He didn't even ask, just assumed I would do it. And for the first time in 3 years, I responded, "No." Just that, "No." He called me immediately like, "What do you mean no?" And I told him, "Dylan, you're 22 years old. Get a job and buy your own tires." He got furious. Started yelling something about how I didn't understand his situation, that he had to focus on his studies, and I just hung up. My mom called me 30 minutes later, crying, saying how could I be so cruel to my brother, that the tires were a safety issue, blah, blah, blah. I told her, "Mom, I've paid over $100,000 in 3 years. It's over." And she was shocked because I think she had never added it all up, or maybe she had and just didn't care. That night, I made a decision. I started looking for apartments in other states, literally 4 states away from where I lived, in a city where my company had an office and I could transfer. I found an amazing place. A 1-bedroom apartment 20 minutes from the new job, and I did the whole process in 2 weeks. Signed the lease, coordinated the work transfer, everything in secret. The only person who knew was Heather, who supported me 100% and offered to help me move. The time came to tell my parents. It was a Sunday. We were all having dinner. Well, everyone except Heather, obviously. and I waited until we finished eating. My dad was talking about some work thing, I don't know what, and I just interrupted him and said, I have an announcement. I'm moving next month. I already signed a lease for an apartment in city 4 states away. My job is transferring me. The silence that followed was like deafening. You know what I mean? My mom was looking at me like I had told her I was joining a cult. My dad had his fork halfway to his mouth, and Dylan just said, Wait, what? What happened next was basically 2 weeks of psychological warfare. My mom alternated between crying and giving me the silent treatment. My dad tried the guilt route, saying things like, I thought family mattered to you, or after everything we've done for you. Dylan was angry because, according to him, I was ruining his last year of college by taking away his support. I explained that each of them was a capable adult, that Dylan could get a job like millions of students do, that the two of them had jobs and could adjust, but nobody wanted to listen. It was exhausting. Like I'd come home from work and there was drama waiting for me. My mom left passive-aggressive notes on my door. Dylan stopped talking to me completely. My dad tried to have serious conversations, where he basically told me I was being immature and selfish. There was one particularly horrible moment like a week before my move. I came home after packing some things at my office and found my mom sitting on the stairs crying. I sat next to her because, I still cared despite everything. And she told me she felt like I was abandoning her, that after her mom died a few years ago, I had been her support, that she didn't know how they were going to survive without me. And for a second, just a second, I felt all my resolve crumbling, that family guilt they instill in you since childhood. But then I remembered the Reddit comments, Heather's words, the $102,000, and I stood firm. I told her, Mom, you're going to be fine. You both have jobs. Dylan can work. This isn't the end of the world. And she just shook her head and went to her room, slamming the door. Moving day came, and Heather drove like 6 hours to help me. I had rented a truck, and the plan was to leave early in the morning. But when we went down for my stuff, my parents had put some of my furniture in the locked garage. Literally. My dad said that since I had bought that furniture while living there, technically it was part of the house, which was the most ridiculous excuse I'd ever heard. Heather almost lost her patience, but I just said, Keep it. I don't care. And we kept loading. Dylan didn't even come out of his room to say goodbye, and my parents stayed in the living room watching TV like nothing was happening, although I could see my mom crying from where I was. We drove all day. Heather stayed with me over the weekend to help me settle in, and when she finally left on Sunday night, I sat in my empty apartment, on my new couch I had bought at IKEA, and felt this weird mix of relief and sadness. Relief because I was finally free, sadness because my family had basically disintegrated. But more than anything, pride, I think, because I had had the guts to get out of there. Like 2 months passed without me talking to anyone except Heather. I changed my phone number, blocked my parents and Dylan on all social media, basically disappeared. Heather kept me updated on what was happening, and apparently things got difficult for them quickly. Without my $800 in rent, plus all the extra money I always paid, my parents had to seriously adjust their budget. Dylan had to get a part-time job at a coffee shop near the university, which apparently was a massive shock to his system because he had never had to work a day in his life. My parents started pressuring him to contribute to household expenses, like I had been doing. And for the first time, Dylan experienced what it was like to be on the other side of that dynamic. About 3 months in, I got an email from Dylan. He used an email address I didn't know, so it wasn't blocked. The email was long, like 3 pages, and it was basically an apology. A real apology. Not one of those fake apologies like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but a genuine acknowledgement that he had been a spoiled, entitled brat who never appreciated what I had done for him. That now that he was working and paying for his own things, he understood how difficult it was. That our parents had been manipulative with me, and he had been too selfish to see it at the time. It ended saying he didn't expect me to respond, but he needed me to know he was truly sorry. I didn't respond immediately. Honestly, it took me like 2 weeks to process that email and decide what to do. But eventually I sent him a short response, saying, I appreciated the apology and hoped he was learning to be more independent. It wasn't like a complete reconciliation, but it was a start, I guess. The real shock came around month 4 when I received a letter in the mail, a physical handwritten letter from my parents. In the letter, they admitted they had taken advantage of me, that they had exploited my generous nature and my desire to help the family, that they had been unfair, especially in how they treated me. When I announced I was leaving, my mom had written her part saying that the guilt she made me feel was her own insecurity and fear of change, that she had never really processed her own financial problems, and it had been easier to depend on me than face her situation. My dad wrote something similar, admitting that after his hours got reduced at work, he felt like a failure as a provider, and that I had filled that void in a way that wasn't healthy for anyone. That letter made me cry. I'm not going to lie, because I never thought they were going to admit any of that. Like I genuinely believed they were going to be mad at me forever. A few weeks passed before I responded to them, and when I did, it was by phone. The conversation was weird at first, tense, but eventually we could really talk. I told them I loved them, but I would never go back to that dynamic, that if we were going to have a relationship, it had to be as equal adults, not as their personal bank. They agreed, and although no, words are easy, and actions are what matter. It was something. I did one thing, that I still don't know if it was a good idea or not, but I felt it was right at the time. I sent them a check for $5,000, one time, as a gift to help them adjust to their new financial reality. I included a note saying this was the last money they would receive from me, to use it wisely, and that I hoped they understood this was closure, not a continuation of the previous pattern. My mom called me crying gratefully, but she respected my boundaries, didn't ask for more. It's been like 8 months since I moved and things are different. I talk to my parents like once a month. Superficial conversations mostly, like how's the weather? What are you doing at work? Nothing deep but civil. Dylan and I exchange messages once in a while. He graduated last semester and got a job at a tech company. He's renting his own apartment with roommates and managing his own expenses, which is a massive change from the kid who used to demand I buy him tires. Heather is still my main connection to the family. She's like my sanity check, and she visits me every couple of months. As for me, I'm good, better than good actually. My new job gave me a promotion 3 months ago. I'm saving money for the first time in years because I'm not giving it away. I started dating someone I met in a hiking group. Basically, my life is mine again. I have this feeling of freedom I hadn't felt in years. Like I can spend my money on whatever I want without feeling guilty. I can make plans without wondering what family emergency is going to come up. I can just exist. Last week, Dylan sent me a photo of his first official paycheck, like proud of himself, and wrote, "Now I understand why you hated when I asked you for money all the time. Working is exhausting, bro." I responded with a thumbs up emoji and a welcome to the real world. I don't know if our relationship is going to go back to what it was before. Honestly, I don't know if I want it to be exactly like before, but there's something there. Something that could become a healthy adult-sibling relationship eventually, maybe. My parents invited me for Christmas this year. That's still a long way off, but I'm considering it, though I'll probably only go for 1 day and stay at a hotel, not at their house, because I need to keep those boundaries clear. Heather will obviously be there, so at least I'll have an ally if things get weird. And that's enough for now, I guess. Just going day by day, protecting my peace and my bank account.